Hey everybody, I'm Darren. I am a professional scuba instructor in South Florida, and today we're going to talk about how easy it is to use one of these, a compass, to navigate underwater while diving. It's a tool I use all the time, whether I am heading out on a shore dive and need to find my way back to where I started, or on a boat dive if you head out and need to come back to the boat, or just to navigate around a reef or some objects and stay on track. It's really simple. And in this video, I'm going to show you the parts of the compass, how to use it for a couple of common scenarios, and make you a more competent and confident diver. So let's start off with a few different kinds of compasses. We have one like this, which is mounted on a bungee, goes on your arm. We have one like this, it's on a retractor. Also has a little slate that you can write on. It might be part of your console next to your pressure gauge. To use this, you got to make sure you unclip it and have it out in front of you. Might also be part of your dive computer. Regardless of the compass that you're using, they all work essentially the same way. So first, let's go through the parts of the compass and how you use it, and then put it into action and show you how you actually navigate with it. Let's go through the parts of a basic dive compass. So at the very center is the compass face. It is marked with NSEW for north, south, east, and west. The N on the compass face is always going to point to magnetic north. So in this case, that way. And you can see this, this is an iPad pencil. You can see it has a magnetic field on it. It causes the compass face to rotate, actually, when it gets close there. So if I wanted to travel directly north, I would position my body like that. In the center of the compass is a lubber line. It's this red mark right here. And that should always be pointed in the direction of your travel. Around the outside is a bezel, and that bezel has numbers stamped onto it, 0 to 360, and it rotates like this. It's actually not telling us any useful information. It's not telling us the heading that we're traveling in or anything like that. But we will use it because of these index marks here and an index mark here. So we have a double index mark at the 0 and a single index mark at 180 or south. And we'll talk about how we're going to use those index marks in a minute. But they allow us to set a relative direction of travel that we want to go in. And then if we want to see the actual heading that we're traveling in, or the bearing, if we wanted to see the actual numbers, we have a little window down here. And in this case, it would tell us that we are going 300, or just under 300, maybe 290, something like that. It's important that when we use a compass, we keep this flat. So if we have it tipped like this, it can no longer rotate freely. So we always want to keep our compass flat to the horizon, flat relative to the ground. Let's go through two different scenarios where you might find the compass to be really helpful. The first is when we want to travel a known direction. So if we're heading out on a shore dive and we know that we need to head out south and then come back north, or we might have a known direction between two places underwater. For example, let's say we wanted to travel between this barge, and we know our direction here runs along a north-south orientation. So if we are here and we want to head to this barge, we know we're going to head south. We're heading 180. So let's look at how we'll do that on the compass. When I want to go south, that's 180 degrees. I'm going to put 180 on the bezel here at the top of the lubber line. So just like this. Now I just need to position my body so that the N on the compass face right there is in my double notch on the bezel, just like this. And this is my direction of travel. So, as long as I keep the N on the compass face sitting in the double notch of the bezel and go in this direction, I will be heading south. We've traveled south from this barge to this barge, 180 degrees. Now we need to turn around and do the reciprocal. We've traveled south and we're going to turn around, and rather than turning the bezel, all we need to do now is put the N on the compass face pointed at the single notch on our compass, on the bezel here, and go in that direction. So we don't have to do any math. Let's try another example. And let's say that we wanted to travel heading 120. Okay? So we're going to put 120 at the top here. So the bezel 120 is lined up with the lubber line right there. And now we're going to position our body so that the N on the compass face goes into the double notches on our bezel, just like that. Now we're going to travel in this direction, like that. When we have reached that destination and we want to do the reciprocal, we don't have to do any math. We don't have to calculate 180 degrees from there. All we're going to do is spin our body around. So now the N on the compass face right there is pointed to 180, and we're going to go in this direction. That's the situation where we know the heading. But it's much more common for me that I don't need to know the heading. I just need to know the direction that I want to travel. So for example, my buddy and I are diving along and we're looking for the boat and we're not sure where it is. So we signal to each other, I don't know. So I'm going to go up and look for the boat. So I surface, I look around, and I see where the boat is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to point my lubber line at the boat and turn my bezel so that it lines up like that. Let me show you how that looks. Here we are. We have surfaced right here. We pop up and we're looking around. There's the boat. So we know we need to go in that direction. But I don't care if that direction is 30 degrees, 80 degrees. It doesn't matter. I just know that I need to go this way. So what I'm going to do is make sure that my lubber line is pointed at the boat. And then I'm going to turn my bezel so that the double notches here on the bezel are lined up to the N on the compass face. So with those two lined up, I know I need to travel in this direction, just like this. I don't have to pay attention to the actual heading. I just need to keep those two things aligned. And I'm swimming along like this. I get distracted. I see a lobster over here. All I need to do is get myself back on track by turning my body until these two things line up and resume swimming like that. Same process if I'm using the digital compass that's on my dive computer. So again, I've surfaced here. I see the boat over here. So I'm going to point my watch in that direction. And on most electronic compasses, you'll have a button that will set that index mark. So it's almost like spinning the bezel around. And now we have a little green indicator here. So as long as I keep my body positioned like this, moving in that direction, I know I'm heading towards the boat. Now let's talk about currents or surge or other environmental factors that make that more challenging. When we navigate underwater and there's a current, it's going to push us one way or another, and it's going to affect the direction that we actually travel. If we just look at our compass and follow that blindly, but the current is pushing us one way or the other, then we're actually not going to end up at our destination. So we need to take that into account. There are formulas you can follow. There are lots of different techniques that you can be real specific about. But I think the simplest way to navigate in a current is to use a combination of natural navigation plus what the compass is telling me. Let me show you what that looks like. Let's say that I have just surfaced and I want to navigate to that American flag on the boat there. What I'm going to do is line up my lubber line so that it is pointing to the flag, like that. Then I'm going to spin my bezel so that the N on the compass face is in those 2 index marks on the bezel, like that. So those are lined up. I'm going to descend back down, and then we're going to just keep that N on the compass face in the double index marks as we move forward. But the current is pushing us, say the current's pushing us like this. So what I want to do is I want to pick a point that I can see in front of me that is in line with my direction of travel. So I'm going to look out here and I see, let's call that fern, a coral head. So I got my compass lined up. I'm going to swim forward. Current's pushing me like this, but I want to just keep that fern as my target. Now once I hit that fern, I can reposition my compass, get it lined up, and look at my next object that I can see. So I'm picking objects along the way that I can use as visual references rather than just relying on my compass. So hopefully that was a useful introduction to using a compass, or a refresher if you haven't used one for a while. We didn't talk about how to estimate distance underwater, or more complicated patterns like triangles and squares and things like that. We can save that for another video. But if you found this one helpful, please like it, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you back here next time.